capacity. Providers who have no skill and don't know where to refer clients, male clients, will not speak about vasectomy, even if they had some information about it in pre-service. But we do know when they are trained or when they are being molded as providers, the pre-service has gaps, and those also need to be addressed. So there's a challenge of also looking at how do we mold this provider, how do we produce this product, and fix those challenges that are in their education. We also heard from one of the speakers about instruments and requirements for the enabling environment for providing a wide range of methods, including vasectomy. When you look at the essential lists of equipment in some of our countries and some of the countries that will be supporting, you find they don't have the vasectomy kits listed as an essential equipment. So they do the purchases, they do the procurement, etc. But that gap remains. And in some, you heard that the standards and norms may be missing permanent methods. So that is a challenge, because as a supervisor or whatever, that falls within the cracks. So we will not look for instruments for vasectomy or any other such methods. So those are things that we need to fix. And then the whole area of bias and how we organize services. Men typically are not by design of how the services are organized. There's no provision for a man to walk into a family planning. Now in some countries they have started bringing that dimension, but that is still a challenge that needs to be addressed to ensure that individuals who are different gender can access those services and can be attended to and get information on services for a wide range of methods, including vasectomy. So I'll just pause there.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ominde, and thank you to all of our panelists. I think this has been really a wide-ranging discussion. We heard kind of the landscape analysis of the situation, what works, what doesn't work in various countries. We also heard about commonalities. We heard about commonalities around barriers, about human resources, around training, around equipment. And then Katie came and said, well, here are some of the things that have a potential to help address the problem. It's going to take time. And I think that's what all of our panelists have said. This is not going to happen in a day, right? We know even if we scale up accessibility and fix things in countries, it takes time. You're not going to see a big change all of a sudden. And that's always a challenge when you're trying to pitch to your Minister of Health and your Ministry of Finance, I need X amount of money to do X. And they say, well, how long is it going to take? And how much do you need? If you say it's going to take me 10 years, they're going to look at you and say, no, we can't do that. And then we finished up hearing a really nice summary from Dr. Ominde on the challenges and kind of some of the thoughts around those. And I think, one of the reasons to kind of finish up on the challenges is to keep people thinking. We really want you to try to think about innovative methods and ways to mitigate some of the challenges and move things forward. So I think with that, we'd like to thank everyone for your attendance and for your thoughtful participation. And I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan, who's going to introduce the next group from Uganda. And I'll let you take it from there. Thanks so much, everyone.
Well, thank you, guys. And everybody's welcome to stay, of course, and continue, feedback and everything whatever you'd like to contribute. But really appreciate that, Renee. I thought that was awesome. So interesting. And like you said, all the diversity, but so many commonalities as well. So very well done and really appreciate it. So I'm going to hand over the microphone to Ibrahim Nkonge, who has been working with World Vasectomy Day just to help put together programs in Uganda and support existing programs. And there's a lot going on in Uganda. So, Nkonge, I pass it to you, and thanks everybody. Guys, so go, Nkonge, it's up to you now. Ibrahim.
Thank you, Jonathan, and good morning, everyone. I hope that you can hear me very well now. It's been a very long discussion for the past 11 hours, and it is interesting that people are here now. Uganda will send you greetings. It's an afternoon now, and we are going to have a lot of interesting things that we're going to be discussing. So I request that we all keep around. We have different people. We have partners like DKT International. We have Bergstrom Foundation. We have Richard Uganda. We have ACODEV. We have Reproductive Health Uganda. And we're going to be discussing vasectomies in Uganda, that different lessons people have gotten, the challenges they faced, how can we improve this, and how can we have a unified discussion. And also we're going to have some testimonials shared. So to kick us off, I'm going to just give you a brief of what we are going to be doing today. We are going to have 2 hours engagement, and we are going to start with welcoming remarks from Antonio from DKT Uganda. Then we shall have a keynote speech from Dr. Ndamaje from the Bergstrom Foundation. And then we are going to have a video of testimonies from different men around Uganda about vasectomies and what they believe that vasectomies have done for them. After that, we shall have a discussion from different key partners like Richard Uganda, DKT Uganda, ACODEV, and Reproductive Health Uganda to see the different things they've been doing around Uganda in terms of vasectomies. And then we shall have a minute for people to ask questions and also react. And then we can also discuss on how we can normalize the conversations around vasectomy in Uganda. Just why we have that discussion on how to normalize vasectomies in Uganda, it is because very many people, even when the little work we are doing, very many people still don't have clear information and still don't have all it takes to discuss vasectomies. But that we shall discuss later. For now, allow me to invite Antonio to just give a few remarks, and then we can start. Antonio, you're welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Ibrahim. Thank you, Jonathan, for that. For those 11 hours, it's a lot, but thanks for all what you are doing. We are happy to be part again of the World Vasectomy Day, that as our CEO, Chris Purdy, mentioned that you should reconsider the name to World Vasectomy Week, but I believe that now it's like World Vasectomy Month, because it's not just 1 week, at least not in Uganda, and even in the States, you started like early November. So thanks for doing this. It's brave, and we are happy to do some efforts here with our partners, with Richard Hand, with Mary Stubbs, and other partners. We are also involving the Ministry of Health now in this conversation. And we are also like bringing some partners from Women First Digital with some influencers. So we are happy to promote World Vasectomy Day. At DKT, we work for a world where all children are truly wanted, the sex is good, and people are free. So we believe that by promoting positively vasectomy, by creating this environment where we can normalize vasectomy, we can change that mindset. So we are happy to be here, and I hand it over to Ibrahim.
Thank you very much, Antonio. That was super quick. So right now I'm going to invite Dr. Francis Ndamaje from the Bergstrom Foundation to give us a talk about the male involvement in family planning in Uganda and how we can do it better and differently. So Dr. Francis, you are welcome.
Thank you much, Ibrahim, and thank you, the team, for the invitation and the opportunity to participate in this. My role here is to give the picture, Uganda, and we have quite a lot of stories that probably we'll hear from the different members. Basically in Uganda, male involvement, which would now take in two sects. One being the men as supporting family planning, supporting their spouses, but also the men as users using vasectomy. We look at the male support in so many aspects. One, in the African settings, especially Uganda, I would say the men are occupying some space. And this space is so much in the political, in the religious, in the youth. So any engagement where the men have their word, there's wide leadership that we can take from. And there's a lot of change that can come from the men if they're engaged. Men as users of family planning, we could just talk about the condoms, but now that probably is at some point well taken in, but then users of vasectomy is what is lacking in our context and in our community. We have seen programming by partners at the moment, which has limited information on vasectomy. For the time I've been in the space of SRH, you see that we have programming for, family planning, contraception, and the partners, they have focus on mainly the female or the women to take up this. When you look at the programming of SRH, almost it may, I would say, it prohibits a talk of permanent methods. It's like short-term methods, long-term methods. The permanent methods have not been given a lot of attention. In terms of the head, which here is the Minister of Health, as heading the health sector, we have several mentorships in family planning. This is not the same as vasectomy. We have mentorships by Minister of Health, long-term methods, short-term methods, but with vasectomy, this is not covered. When you look at more support coming from the Ministry of Health, support supervision, other facilities, this is tailored to other SRH, other family planning, but not vasectomy. The ministry also supports facilities, the public health facilities, with equipment, but you find that it's IUD sets, implant, removal sets, commodities, but no vasectomy sets being provided. When you look at the data capture tools, there is a lot missing about vasectomy. When you look at surveys that are carried out, we have the PMA surveys by Makerere School of Public Health. Yes, they do a lot. They talk about male involvement, but less is said about vasectomy. Equally, the donors from different aspects. These donors, when they're supporting programming, they have less focus on vasectomy. They don't care about vasectomy. They are also talking about long-term methods, short-term methods. This is not taken into consideration that actually. Someone can mute so that.
Yeah, could somebody mute? Be sure to mute your mic if you haven't already, just to make it a little easier for the speaker to concentrate.
Thank you.
I'm trying to mute Aaron. Aaron, can you please mute? Aaron?
Yes, thank you so much. What we see in the communities at the moment as we do programming for SRH, the many are actually complaining. They are saying we are left out in the programming that you are doing. So what needs to be done differently so that we have the men involved, we have the vasectomies included, and we have the space equally occupied by men, women, and everyone involved. So we are saying that if there's inclusion of vasectomy in programming campaigns, like any other methods, IUDs, implants, etc., we would probably have a more talk about vasectomy, more publicity of vasectomy, and more knowledge going to the people. In the messaging, IEC materials, the job aids that are used at the facilities, the information about vasectomy is lacking. If the Ministry of Health, for example, if the partners are printing out the IEC materials, UNFPA, you said, we think that having the vasectomy messaging included would actually change the game, and will have people understand more about the permanent methods and more about the vasectomy, and men will feel included in this programming. When you look at the surveys, the national surveys about family planning, I mean, you can see the indicators written, meaning modern contraception among all women. The indicator of men is actually not captured. For example, in the Uganda context, we think that if the men are a very big focus in these surveys, we can actually have them being involved more, and probably thinking that, yes, we have a very big role to play in family planning. In terms of facility readiness, I mean, I talked about this, the training of health workers, the equipment, provision of IEC materials, the vasectomy bit. Let the facilities have vasectomy sets. Let them have equipment. Let them be trained to provide vasectomies. And I mean, this will be something that's talked about in the facilities, in the communities, among others. The donors should make a case for method mix. And in this case, we should have vasectomy talked about. Demand creation programs should be involving male involvement, and the donors should be free enough to invest in programming that involves men, demand creation that is also targeting men. So when we have support for the male engagement activities, mobilization, and training is provided, just like other methods, we think that actually the men will be involved. Now, I attended one of the partner programs, and they had a very good demand creation approach for male engagement. The board games where men will sit and have these games and are drinking, are doing all sorts of social activities. And this was a big Ludo game, which has a board and different sects, 4 sects. Here, I would see there were images that are sending a family planning message. One of the sects had the BTL, the other one had IUD, another one had implant, and another one had injectable. These are 4 sects, and it's targeting men. There was no picture of vasectomy. So I had a question for them that, yes, this is for male engagement. Where is vasectomy? So it seems that we have not given ourselves that mandate to pass on the vasectomy information at all the opportunities that have been provided. In terms of CSOs, the civil society organizations, I think if we have SRH supporting organizations do deliver information on permanent methods every time, just like other methods, demand creation that involves male involvement, then we shall have change. The leaders, I think this would be the most important, because as implementing partners, we have faced a lot of backlash from the leaders because they do not understand the information. But in terms of community burden, you see that if there are unplanned pregnancies, you're going to have larger families, which are not expected. I mean, people not planning for these children. Then maternal and child health complications will come in, mortalities and different complications. We shall have orphaned children and vulnerable children, hence. Then there will be single mothers and school dropouts. There will be health complications like malnutrition. We shall have high illiteracy rates, and then we shall have resultant criminals. All these burdens are in the communities, and the communities usually turn to the leaders for solutions. So in terms of programming, I think the leaders should be targeted, because these are things which are indicative of able leadership or failed leadership in case you have a community which is not able to understand all the family planning, contraception, and child spacing, etc. So in my conclusion, I think we should not fail the communities. Let us embrace family planning. Let us embrace and popularize vasectomy. And I ask all stakeholders all over the country, across Africa, across the world, to have vasectomy as a bigger part of their different programming. And hence we shall have a very good community that is developmental, that is catered for, and we shall have a method mix, equality, and we shall have respect for the men's rights as able to choose which family planning or how many children to have, the size of the families. Yes, my name is Francis Ndamaje. I work with the Bergstrom Foundation. I'm the regional officer for Africa. And yeah, nice to hear from you all. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Ndamaje. That is very interesting, the insights that you're giving, especially
Abraham, on mute. Ready, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I was thanking Dr. Ndamaje, and I was talking about the level of involvement. It is very interesting. I had a discussion one time with Jonathan and some other colleagues, and we were saying that there is a lot of focus on female family planning methods, yet a woman can only successfully get pregnant twice a year. Like if she gets pregnant in January and decides to give birth, she can only get pregnant again once. But for the gentleman, a man can actually successfully make more than 3 women pregnant in a day. So it is very important that we discuss the involvement of men at a bigger level. So I'm going to be sharing a video right now that is showing a few testimonies from different people that Richard has been working with in terms of vasectomies. They are from different regions of Uganda. Those of you that know Uganda, I realize that there are districts that are different, but also after the videos, you're going to see how men discuss the aftermath of their vasectomies and how they address the different worries that some people have. So let's watch this video and then we'll continue from there.
Is the sound not working?
No, the sound is not working.
Kept on like that.
You want to give it another shot? You want to start over, see what the issue is?
Yes, is the sound working now?
My district. I have 6 children and I'm a subsistence farmer growing crops purposely for family consumption. How I came to have 6 children is that my wife did not know how to calculate her days. Because for her, she could tell me, maybe today I'm not on danger, these days I'm not on danger, but she's on danger. So when we go into the game, find out she's vigilant. So we just kept on like that. Because to me, it was hard for me to calculate for her. So we just found ourselves within that short period of time we reached 6 children, which is now very hard to take care of. When they fall sick, it forces me to borrow money from these savings for treatment. So I find life very hard. At times, to get money for treating, maybe you have to scoop something from the house, maybe granules to sell. At times, we sell cassava for treatment, which is really bad for me. Life has been hard. When you talk about feeding, we've been feeding on the local greens, marantas, and this local one from Southeast, and it's called a boy in our language. And if it is to change a diet for them, I change with silverfish. That is how I've been surviving here. How I came to know this vasectomy, I heard it over the radio with someone called Amon, and that was in a top radio, one of our local radios. After that program, I shared with my wife. I talked to her that, my wife, I think this will work for me if I saved myself, because I think I'm the person. I'm the one who always predates you. Why don't I go for it to save you from getting pregnant all the time? And she was like, are you not going to miss everything? Are you not going to lose? Because we can via sex. Then I told her, I know how to talk to the experts. They will explain to me. But when I talked to those people, they advised me and they told me what is happening today, that I will not weaken my manhood. She received the idea. So she chose it and she advised me. I went for it. What inspired me to take on vasectomy is that if I really did it, it was going to help me. I will be able to save and even to feed those ones that I've produced. Since I did it is now 2 months past, but I've not felt any. Only that very day, and I felt some pain, and after that pain went. I have no problem again. I walk well. I can even drive. My life has changed because right now we can also plan in the house. Because when you look behind the other side, at least I've started putting there something, and I know that house will be there for if God helps me to finish it. It will be there for the children. But before that, I never had any plan of putting even a brick in this home. So one of these days, I'm very free. I'm very sure that my wife cannot conceive, and we can now start planning within home how to develop this home. Think of saving some money to put those children maybe in 1 year next year. We shall be putting one to start studying in private schools, and we shall be putting them one by one. If I had not gone for this vasectomy, I was going to produce and die very poor. The situation that I was in was not a good situation. I lived with 1 trouser, 2 shirts, whatever little coin that you get. Children demand for 100 shillings, they demand for bread. When you get 1,000, you have to change their diet. You have to buy silverfish for them. and that was the way to feed them. When I talked to my friends, some of them were believing, some of them were not believing, but so far 2 of them accepted, and I even took them and they also worked on, and they're also feeling well. I encourage all men to take this vasectomy because it is one way that will save them to begin planning for their families, like the way I have now started planning with my wife. And in future, we're also planning to put up a house for us that we can sleep, and that will be good for us because we are not again worried of producing children like that. I call upon all men in Uganda to join vasectomy because it will be one way for us to save for ourselves and for the future. And I'm proud of being a member of vasectomy. It's going to work for me, and I'm seeing changes. Now I'm beginning to widen my brain and to plan for my family and for myself.
I'm Sempira Jared. I'm a teacher by profession. At the same time, I'm a farmer. I'm 46 years old. I'm married. I have 1 wife with 5 children. Originally, I wanted to do catering because I was given a place at Moose. Then I stopped because somebody discouraged me and went for National Teachers College. Then from there, jobs were not easy. I even tried joining the army, did not go well. I went back to the classroom, and that's where of course I've been for like in the last 10 years. And I'm even planning to settle down and do serious agriculture. One of the challenges that I was having was how to raise my children. Because 1, they need school fees, and they need medical clothing, and of course, the economic resource to me was very small, and I wanted to limit producing more because it would make me able to give them the necessary help, the necessary support, the necessary care that they would get as my children. When I told my wife about vasectomy, she of course at first she was very apprehensive and she did not agree wholesomely. But after we had discussed for long, then she agreed that I should go. Yabagamba si bituufu kisooka omusajja asobola kukola emirimu gye oba tokyalina kutya nti ogenda mukazi ogenda mufundisa olubuto. I'm proud of the decision which I took because 1, I'm not worried about the production of any more child or children. What I'm planning after this is, of course, 1 is caring about my children and giving them the best education that I can afford and doing some developments like upgrading my plantation. I'm happy I did vasectomy and it has changed my life drastically.
Amazina abanyita MC w'Efurayimu yo mushije umufumbo no mucyara wanje turi n'abana mwenda kandi turi abahingi. Tukaba turi n'urukiko a project ya compassion izira muba amo nawe bari kushomesa kitongore ekyo kikaba kiri cyaro cyande Uganda bari kugamba abashija ono kumuka bakwasa kucyendezo kuzara mu Uganda kuna bihurire nakibuza umunonga awe kinyewe ninzara kandi harabashija bakwasa kusharesha icyo kuzara kuna harize kutonga agamakuru ndayishara munyenka unekereza kushara ijana mushangana mugambara amugationa za kushara tinjene kuzara rikiraho tarakitire nkanshonga yikiriza ubana n'icyo yabiri nayenda ntabwo cyuko nakigambire kandi ho yashemera yakikiriza naganira na Amoni yangambire mitwarize yansigira hirane kandi kikiriza we gitachi tongore cyaro cyandi no gukora vasectomy ngo kucyora kwanje kabaguriye umusomo ubwo baresera project. Cyagiye kozi vasectomy cyakire kintu kimwe umanya abantu turana mu kazi batara kumenya bwaragerenda no bwaraje zo kukikora vasectomy abantu merende indete kakishira mu kazi rero no kuzara abana kusya babona no kugira ngo ikibaho ari kumenya ngo waza yiroza kuvuga kirabe ni dina yo kare ndakagikoze kabani tina unanyitaba ngabo nkabona feelings kumkayi nakikorire ikindi cyashaziraho era ko nashanyira ikitine cy'ushara amagaraganye natore n'abatayibanyi abe nashazira no mukazi twine dembe ko Uganda yitwaye kino rukutina mutayimanya naza kugenda naho cyicikaga abana turebera rabo kandi tuwuke kibentu kimwe rarikiza naho kikarugaho so atende garantuye ko atire cyukutemesa twatina kuza yakubanza kushanga yibi ateshaje yeno mchara wanje burane yitu kugira ngo torabana ababitwine tubakozeje tubashomese sente zibere nishora mu kuborora zibase ko nazabashomesa no kubareberera rero nyensya nani nyenda kugambira abagenzi banje banywane banje ebiba kuteka ngo biriyo ebiro kubatenisi kuzayo kibiki tukanteka ngo hariyo kushasha ayibarashari niza kushasha kugatari usasibona hari ikizibu cyo kuvuga nayo ni mbahura abagenzi banje kushara n'ikirungi kibakumira amagaraganye kibakumira ubusinye bwanyu kandi kwerariki amagiza gengo baha bita company Vasectomy Uganda Interpersonal.
To the development like this, I take them there.
To have not only 600 men that are doing vasectomy.
And on ground there, they're working okay.
The future plan is to have not only 600 men that are doing vasectomy, but have thousands, millions of men that can work in any facility, any health center, any hospital, and demand for these services. The future plan is to have every man be an advocate in family planning services, family planning information, creating up a friendly environment whereby all this can be discussed, and also every health center can have at least a service they can give their community members, the different people. The future plan is to have as many champions in Uganda, in Africa, in East Africa, so that they can look at Uganda as a model country where they can borrow lessons from on how men can be engaged in family planning services
and also them being strong champions of family planning.
We hope to scale up next year and cover the whole country, such that wherever a man is, that man can actually access our service. And we're just calling upon the men, if you are tired of giving birth, but of course you want to continue enjoying having your sex. If you are not tired of giving birth, you don't have many children, but you've seen the burden that your colleague has gone through. If you're a young man with swag who wants a small, manageable family, Men Plus is here for you.
We now want to see even young men like me who are like, you know what, I have 2 children, I have 3 children, I think this is, I'm done. So I have to start focusing on how I'm going to love my family better, how I'm going to provide for my family. And the right thing to do is to tell their spouses or their darlings or their hubs or their wife, of like, you know what, I think for me, I've stopped here, let me go for vasectomy. We want to see energetic men like that. We want to see also health centers being accommodative of men at 30, 31, 32 like me. We want to look at them like, hey, what are you looking for? We have to break down those stereotypes around vasectomy and other family planning services.
Well, that is the video. Sorry, I know it's very long, but I'm seeing comments in here. Someone is saying that Ugandan men, I'm happy that you're raising about the misinformation of vasectomy. Keep it up. Yeah, thank you very much. That was a comment that came in from Mboga. Also, during the video, we're joined by Dr. Kenneth Wiza from Reproductive Health Uganda. Just wanted to say you're very much welcome, Dr. Kenneth. He's one of the people that have championed vasectomy in Uganda. So, like I earlier mentioned, after this video, we're going to have a brief discussion from different key players, different organizations that have done work around vasectomies in Uganda, and they have put in time and resources to see that at least men discuss vasectomies, but also that men understand about vasectomies. And I'm going to have someone from RHU, someone from Richard Uganda, someone from ACODEF, someone from DKT. So I'm going to start with Benson, who is the head of programs from Richard Uganda. I'm going to invite him to switch on his camera and his microphone, and then I'm going to ask him a few questions, and then we shall then move to the other people. Benson, you're very much welcome. It's good to see you, and I just want you to introduce yourself, and then also tell us, Richard Uganda is known as a youth-led and youth-serving organization. So I'm really interested in knowing, why are you guys focusing on vasectomy, yet you're a youth organization? Please introduce yourself and give us details about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. I'm delighted to be here. I'm Benson Muhindo. I'm the head of programs at Richard Uganda. Well said. We are a young people's organization. Why are we having a focus on vasectomy? For us, we are looking at the intersectionality, what brings the young people and the older people together. Over the years, we have held what we call the intergenerational dialogue, and within the communities, but also a national intergenerational dialogue, bringing together the young and the old. So if you look at vasectomy in that sense, if you are a young man, you are a young woman, and you want to not plan your family, because I mean, young people don't like to talk about family planning because they don't have families, but you want to make sure that you are using a method of contraception that is suitable for you. And so if you want to have children and be able to look after them and give them the good life, young people love good life, they like good things, but these good things won't come unless you are really prepared. If you want to have children, are you prepared to have them? So us talking about vasectomy is very, very important for us, because we know that in Uganda, young people start to have children as early as 16, depending on where you are, either in the rural or in the urban areas. Just a few weeks ago, I met a cousin of mine who is 36 years, but has 10 children. So what do you do for such a young person? I mean, we have grown up together, slightly older than me, but these are the people that we are looking out for. So if we want to make sure that we bring down the total fertility rate, the young people should be brought on board to, first of all, be aware that vasectomy is a method of contraception and that it's available, it is accessible, that it is a normal conversation, that even when you have had a family size of your choice, you can choose to have a vasectomy at, 27, at 30. But also for the older people, we have seen that, for example, if you look at the lockdown numbers we have had in Uganda in terms of teenage pregnancies, who are, call them perpetrators? Where are they? Of course, we know that, yes, young people are having sex, but we know that some of the people that are causing some of these issues are people that are old. Probably if they have had vasectomies, we are able to address some of these issues at that level so that these young children, I mean, these young girls or young women can be able to continue and finish their school. It's that important. So for us, vasectomy is part of the work that we do. Dr. Ndamaje talked about the method mix. You want to talk about all the other methods, looking at, for example, the IUDs, the implants. How about the vasectomies? Because we know that for now, we are looking at about 0.6% of the people taking up vasectomies here in Uganda. So what does that mean? Where are the men? Are we giving out that information? And, PMA just released a report recently, and the biggest gap we have there is the information, the information gap. So for us, because we have largely been doing demand generation, we want to make sure that we work with government, we work with the service providers, the health service providers for the vasectomies to make sure that information reaches the men, but also reaches the young people. Because I mean, the investment for the future should be made now, so that at an appropriate time, you are not struggling to make a decision, but it's easier for you to make a decision because you have the right information, you have listened to testimonies like those that we just listened to here. It's very critical for us as a young people organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benson. Those are interesting insights, and I'm sure we have very many young people that are listening in and tuned in. We have medical students, we have many young people out there, not only in Uganda, but also around Uganda. I'm sure they are listening, and also they are giving their comments, so we shall be able to hear from them later. Now I'm going to go and invite Moses. Dr. Moses is part of DKT Uganda, and he's going to introduce himself more. But I'm interested in knowing, Dr. Moses, what I would want to know, or what the question I would want to pose to you is that DKT is known for social marketing around the globe. You're really big on it, and even in Uganda, I have packs here of Kiss condom people, and these are some of the most trending condoms used in Uganda. The young people like them. I remember in 2018, I was in Kigali for the International Conference on Family Planning, and one of the things that shocked me is how big DKT goes out there to push the message to the people. So my question is, how can we incorporate vasectomy awareness campaigns in the social marketing world? How can we make vasectomy part of the social marketing? Because you've gone big on other contraceptive methods, but is there a way we can make vasectomy as part of the social marketing and go big on it? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. First of all, I would say that
Dr. Moses, you are mute. We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now? I just unmuted my microphone.
Yeah, now we hear you. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Ibrahim. I was saying that Dr. Moses, I'm the programs manager for DKT Uganda. And as a social marketing organization, the primary role of social marketing is to influence behavior. So we believe that in vasectomy, social marketing has a key role to play, because globally we know that men have a poor health-seeking behavior. Men do not like going to facilities. They like to think about their problems independently, and then they make their decisions in a clandestine way. So social marketing comes in to, first of all, position what we call social behavior change communication. So we need, first of all, position vasectomy as something that is likable, as a family planning method of choice, and it's something that is not creating stigma amongst the target population, that's the men. How shall we do that? We need to bring vasectomy to a same level as circumcision. In Uganda, circumcision is being used as, for instance, a HIV prevention method. And there's a national policy on circumcision. The bare minimum we can do is at least to get national guidelines on vasectomy. That now allows government to at least plan and also allocate resources to vasectomy. As Dr. Francis said earlier, it is clear that when you go to most facilities, you not get infrastructure. Why? It's because the planners do not allocate resources to programs that are not well seated into the national policy guidelines. So for me, the beginning point is that in our social behavior change communication, we should target the upstream audiences, that's the policymakers. We should also target the midstream, the clinicians, the nurses, the people who interact with the men. And then the downstream audience, we should target people like peers, age mates. I've heard most of the speakers saying they have cousins, they have relatives, they have friends who have more than 5 children. That's a key messaging platform that if we target those people, and with the numbers already attained through community vasectomy procedures, we should be able to influence the messages that can decriminalize or make vasectomy a palatable topic to discuss at all communities. So as a social marketing organization, we believe that vasectomy is good. We are going to support it because it allows the men to continue enjoying pleasure, because sex is about pleasure. And as Antonio said, that DKT markets pleasure products. So we believe vasectomy allows men to enjoy sex without worry, and they will also have families without worry. So that's my primary message as regards to social behavior change communication.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moses. And I believe that people are going to be able to note down their questions and give feedback later as we have the time to ask questions. I've seen Renee suggest that voluntary medical circumcision camps are a good place to do discussions for male clients. That's something that we've noted. I'm sure other service providers have noted that when men come to do voluntary circumcision, it's a time to also get them and engage them in discussion with vasectomies. Actually, just to say something about that, since the beginning of the week, we've been working with Richer Hand and DKT to go to different communities to talk to men and tell them about positive masculinity, about the involvement in family planning, also about vasectomies. And it is interesting how yesterday, but one, what a place that has a landing site. And most of these men, when they saw the car and the setup and said, we want men, first thing they asked is, have you guys come to do circumcision? So I think circumcision has been very prominent and it's something that we can tap into. Well, like I said, we have a lot of people that are going to be speaking to us about vasectomies in Uganda. We have Judith. Judith is a programs manager at ACODEV. ACODEV is one of the organizations that actually have done a lot of work in terms of reaching out to rural communities in terms of vasectomies. But what I want to understand is their approach. They really work with public and private sectors, hospitals to reach out for vasectomy. So Judith, I want you to tell us, how have you managed to work with the private and public sector to provide vasectomies? And are there any key learnings you want to share with us about that so people can get information and learn from? Thank you very much. Please, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Abraham, for such a board invitation, and also the team being part of the conference tonight. As earlier said, my name is Judith Kansime. I'm the project manager, ACODEV. Before I get to explain how we do work with private and the public sector, is that I would like to mention that ACODEV is really ground-rooted and there to serve the hard-to-reach and the underserved, but also all this is coming from the high unmet need, most of family planning. Yes, we have really a number of projects that we do work across, but to be so precise, our major energies are into family planning. And today being the World Vasectomy Day, it brings us to things that are very key in our implementation every other day. We all know that a man has a capacity to create a baby boom overnight compared to us ladies or women. There are others why we really put our energies into prioritizing and emphasizing male involvement in our programs. Family planning for a very long time has always been left out to be a women's thing. We've always known that women have taken lead when it comes to uptake of family planning services compared to the men, but we want to see that trend change. So as ACODEV, we work with both private and public sector to provide services to the underserved, but also those that are hard to reach. And how we do it is that we not work alone as per se, is that we work hand in hand with Ministry of Health that leads or that is the custodian of the public sector more so, and also the private sector. But for the private sector is that we only look at completion of permanent method services. That is our good niche that we basically look at when it comes to the private sector. In this case, for the private sector is that we work with surgeons who help us to complete methods so that we don't have a hiccup when it comes to human capacity. Yes, we have a key learnings all along our implementation. And to be so precise is that the uptake of vasectomy is highest amongst the land. Because we work both in urban and also rural, but we see that our statistics show us that the land uptake the service more easily compared to the unland. And then also we find that it is more easier for certified users or a client who has had vasectomy previously to communicate or to easily help the other client to make a decision when it comes to vasectomy. So that becomes easier for them. The other strength that we learn is collaboration with the health workers and the community health workers, who we call VHTs. Our strong collaboration has really led us to see so many men take up these methods, because we have expert VHTs who really are informed. Even some of them are more of our clients. So you find that they can easily talk about the method without any shame. So the uptake becomes more easier that way. And since the health workers, the surgeons, the doctors interface with these clients on a daily for other medical conditions, but also in a deeper counseling or discussion, is you find that one or two, they bring out the element of family planning and how to control their fertility. And at those particular forums, it's where the men come in and really understand and take on the methods. So by and large, those are the key learnings that we get from the whole entire project about vasectomy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judith. Those are key learnings. For me, what I like the most is the fact that satisfied users will go and actually advocate. It's a very important thing about behavior change. Even Dr. Moses mentioned something about behavior change, and I know that advocacy as a level of behavior change is very important. When someone is satisfied with that, what they've done, they can easily recommend it to others to do it. So the other person that I am supposed to have on the discussion is Dr. Simon from Reproductive Health Uganda. He was in transit and he was on and off. I hope he's now on. Dr. Simon, are you there? I don't know, I lost him. Dr. Simon, are you on the call? I saw Dr. Kenneth. I don't know if Dr. Simon is on, but basically, Dr. Simon and Dr. Kenneth come from Reproductive Health Uganda. And Reproductive Health Uganda is one of the biggest organizations that advocate for family planning in Uganda. And they've done a commendable job when it comes to vasectomies and involving of men in family planning. And I wanted to really hear from them about the challenges around provision of the services, because they run a chain of health facilities and clinics around Uganda. So I cannot see Dr. Simon. I don't know if Dr. Kenneth can jump in and share learnings about that, and also talk to us about the challenges they face and how they think can be addressed, or how we can work together to address them. I have seen Dr. Kenneth unmute, so Dr. Kenneth, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. Actually, I joined in to see if I could catch up with the discussion, not knowing that the vote will again fall back on me. I had we had agreed that Simon will be supporting us on this, but he's traveling from Arua, and I know that road has a lot of areas with poor network. Otherwise, thank you so much, and especially to my brothers and sisters at Rich Hand Uganda and DKT for putting this together. Vasectomy. This is something that I think Rich Hand Uganda has held the flag on vasectomy quite high. It is offering us very, very useful lessons that are shaping programming in family planning, especially when it comes to the aspect of male involvement. It has been a common and very long tradition. When we talk about family planning, men are asking, but what's this for us? So much that it had reached a point where whenever you talk about family planning, men would easily dismiss it as an issue for women. But this is the real, I would say, the master key that actually we are offered with, what we are presented with, that can actually help us out address issues of birth control and population management and planning. Yes, we have been in the area of family planning and SRH in general precise as a reported of Uganda for those agents that has been venturing into this space. For a very long time, but for a very long period of time, we had only concentrated on the condom use. But we have learned, especially RHU was privileged to be part of the pilot project called Men Plus. We keep calling out now that we have Men Plus 2. It is almost becoming mathematical. Men Plus 1, Men Plus 2. We were privileged to be part of the service providing partners for Reach a Hand Uganda in that project, a project that demonstrated demand for vasectomy services, a project that was helped us to bring out the desire for vasectomies. And when I was listening, watching the testimonies on the video, I was like, wow, I think this is for sure the way to go. We, however, still face a number of challenges. And I would say one of the biggest challenges we still grapple with is in terms of stigma. Every other day, we keep thinking of how to destigmatize vasectomy. And my sister, Judith, said from from the kind of statistics we get from our work, we seem to see more of the elite, people who are of higher formal education, seem to be more likely to, more of them are taking up this service than our folks, our colleagues who are of lower levels of formal education. And yet those are the people who seem to be faced with the real unmet need, big families, low income capacities, and yet that's the group we should be targeting. But the reason is because those who are more elite, people who are able to really read, they are able to comprehend information, they're able to even assess their own, feasibilities in terms of economically against the magnitude of need in terms of resources that they need for their households. This stigmatization of vasectomy still remains a real task for us, because vasectomy is still associated with so many issues. There are so many myths and misconceptions about vasectomy out there in the communities where we work. So many things have been said about vasectomy, how it is purported that vasectomy, some of them equate it to castration. So many things that actually dissuade men away from use of the service. We have, of course, in terms, if you look at the gender norms, the gender imbalances, the masculinities in this country, that, of course, men also look at, some of them look at, vasectomy as one way of, becoming less of a man. And, such social constructs need to be deconstructed. But we are happy that through this kind of campaigns, using lessons and good practices, the successes, the little results we get from the work we have so far done, when we share these stories, when we send out the colleagues who have used and are benefiting, are seeing the good result from the vasectomy, when they talk to their peers, we are seeing the narrative changing. And increasingly, like at RHU, like I said, we have borrowed a lot of lessons from the Men Plus project, so much that we used that to strengthen integration of vasectomy as a key sub-package, part of the FP service package. We are seeing it bear results. Actually, in a period of about 1 year after the Men Plus project, we saw such a big surge of use of vasectomy within our routine family planning
Dr. Kenneth, we've lost you. We cannot hear you. I think it's the network. Okay, Dr. Kenneth, are you still there?
Or procedure that requires to be offered.
Dr. Kenneth, we lost you for a bit, and now we cannot hear you very well. Maybe you get better network and we continue the conversation. But I like the fact that you've mentioned interesting things about Men Plus One. It's a project that actually had a lot of success, and this brings me to a question I always wanted to ask Benson. Dr. Kenneth has mentioned that Raise Your Hand, working with RH in the Men Plus One projects, did a lot of work and you achieved a lot of success. And I'd like to ask what mobilization strategies did you use, and there are any lessons you learned, and how can other partners here that are focusing on vasectomies around look and copy from those strategies that you used, and if there are any lessons that you learned, how can you share those so that people can actually put them to use? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim and Dr. Kenneth Wiza. Yes, we worked on a project called Men Plus One with support from the Bergstrom Foundation. And just a few years ago, and we are getting into the second phase of it. And I can tell you that it was very, very interesting in terms of what we found out there in the field. Of course, being, again, young people, it was very interesting. We always want to task ourselves to do, a lot more. But among the things that we did, and what I think that we did differently, was that we were able to look out for the men and look out for the men where they are. Where do you find the men? You find the men in bars, drinking places. Of course, now that we have COVID, it's a little bit challenging. But back then, we would go to nightclubs, talk to the DJ and ask them if they can mention about vasectomy and give out your number. You will be surprised at how many men are going to call you. But surprisingly, the first things they will ask you when they call is whether they are still able to have children. I mean, if they are still able to perform sexually. The biggest fear for men that we interacted with was sexual dysfunction. And I think that, and this fits into the conversation that we had, and Dr. Francis did mention this, that unless we deal with the issues that are preventing the men from coming to the table, then we will not have as many vasectomies like we want to have. So we went to the bars, we went to the nightclubs, making sure that when you go to the nightclub, for you, it's an avenue for you to speak to the men, tell them about vasectomy, and importantly mentioning that actually it's a very simple procedure. It can be done very fast. It's very less painful, and you're able to walk back home. Within a few days, you're able to, do your work normally. We have worked on some men and they're able to, walk back home, go back to their shops and sit and continue doing their business. So making sure that you find the men where they are is very, very important. Find them in their spaces and talk to them. Find the things that interest them. Men love to watch football. Are you going out to those, locally we call them Uganda here? Are you able to go to those places where they watch football, cinema halls, wherever they are? Find them there, give them the information. Of course, importantly, as we provided the information, importantly was also to mention the issues of the side effects that are in there. But the fact that they are slight, they are, the pain is less, there are very few associated complications if you are able to follow the instructions, but also telling them that really they have to, they will undergo a semen analysis. Explaining the procedure was very, very helpful. One of the other things that we did was to find, we called them champions. You can call them certified users. Hearing from an experience of a man, there's one particular one that we worked on, and when he came to speak to the men, he said, if I ever realized that my vasectomy somehow didn't work, I would immediately come back to make sure that it is done, because now I perform better than I used to perform in bed, and I want to make sure that I have that vasectomy. Imagine that is coming from a man, and this is a man that was working at district local government. But just like Dr. Kenneth said, how do we reach out to the men who are in the rural and probably don't have access to, they are not in the urban setting? So we did what we call the door-to-door mobilization, moving from one door to another. And this really works very well for the rural, because you know the homes, you go out to them, you know who to speak to, and you know which family actually has the highest burden. And also working with the local people, selecting them carefully, especially the certified users, the mobilizers, the champions, the peer educators. You make sure that you select them carefully. They are able to resonate with the men. Men want to be respected. So you make sure that the people that go to them are able to speak to them in a way that they understand. So the door-to-door visits, but also what we call the table talks, which are focus group discussions where men come, sit and have these conversations. On that particular day, probably you will not have a man that is going to take up a method. But when you give them your contact, or when you come to them again, they will call you and they will tell you, we want to have the method. One of the other things that was very key were the anonymous clients. There are those clients that didn't want to make sure that even the mobilizers know that they're actually going to take up the method. They'll give you a call, they say, I want to have the method. Where can I go? I just want to interface with the doctor. And it's really simple, because, if you have done your counseling very right, the surgeon should be able to interface with the client, and the method is done, and they're able to go back home without any problem. So meaning that we were addressing the issues around confidentiality and privacy. If a man doesn't want to, come out to share his story, please respect their opinion so that they're able to have their vasectomy carefully and in secrecy. So you make sure that all that is addressed. And one of the other things that we did was to work with local leaders. Look at here in Uganda, we call them the chairpersons, local council one. These people know which families have the biggest burdens. But before you go to them, do they also understand what the vasectomy is? Do they know how important it is? Because if they don't understand that this vasectomy is important to the community, they will not lead you to these families that are having such huge burdens. In my culture, we have a nomenclature for the names. For example, I'm called Muhindo because I'm a second born, and so on and so forth. But there are those families where you go to and they have exhausted all the names available that were given by our forefathers. So what does that mean? You will not actually know which family is getting to that verge or is having difficulties if you are not working with the local leaders. So it was really a combination of mobilization strategies. Of course, we used our online platforms, but those were mainly targeting the urban men. But also important to note was that in just that short period of about 8 months, we had about 348 vasectomies done. Imagine. That was huge for us, and because we're doing it for the first time. But the other thing that helped us to have this number of vasectomies was that we worked with the women. There are those who gave us referrals, say, okay, you can talk to my man. If he agrees, then he can actually do the vasectomy. There are those who would say, well, if he wants to do a vasectomy, I also do a BTL. So are we listening to those voices that are coming from the concerned parties? So it was really a combination of a lot of things, making sure that we're involving leaders, we are moving to these communities door to door, and making sure that we talk to men in spaces where they are comfortable to open up. In some places, I will tell you that we are young people, we want to do things in a funky way. We used to do silent disco dialogues, where you go to a community and the men are having headsets and no one else is listening to their conversation. And before you know it, someone walks to you and in private and they're telling you, oh, that conversation was really nice. And they're able to come and take up a method. So it's about how innovative we want to be and how we want to use technology. Yesterday, we had the FP 2030 launch worldwide. And these are some of the things that we're talking about. What innovations are we bringing on board as partners, as service providers? Collaborations with partners with Reproductive Health Uganda. But we know that there are many other service providers out there, ACODEV here, Maristops International, Population Services International, and the others out there. We need to make sure that we collaborate, we bring our efforts together, we put our efforts together and be able to map ourselves so that we are able to make a meaningful contribution to the vasectomy work in this country. So I took so long, but I really wanted to labor to explain that it is possible for us to do these vasectomies. Thank you, Ibra. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Benson. It is interesting the things you share, especially how you go around creating new things, innovating, and going to where you find that men. Means going to a bar, you go to a bar. I've just read a quote this morning online about how men react to their health, and it was interesting when one person was saying that sometimes it is easier to take a goat to the well than convince a man that he needs to go to do a health checkup. And it was very much interesting. Henry had a question: does vasectomy affect sexual functionality? But you mentioned that does not. But also, I've seen that Dr. Kenneth has been able to respond. Please feel free to put the questions in the chat there. And if you have any question, you can raise up your hand right now, and I give you a chance to ask your question and respond to it, because the panelists are here and we have this discussion up to 2 p.m. today. But there's an interesting submission from Dr. Ndamage that he has put in the chat when he was saying, thank you, Benson, for knowing about the actual procedure. The quality of care, especially the actual physical procedure, is important. So he was acknowledging the fact that it's very important for us to give the quality vasectomies. And he was mentioning about the non-scalpel vasectomies where there is less or no bleeding and actually no cutting, and it is easier for a man to go back to his work and all that. And then you mentioned a thing about a family that wanted to do a vasectomy and also do a BTL, and it reminded me of a discussion I had with some men in Gaba. Gaba is a place that has a landing site in Kampala where we had a lot of fishermen, and we're talking about the burden of family planning on women vis-a-vis on men. And even we're talking about how they have to take their daily pill or the injection or the BTL. And when we're explaining the procedure of the BTL and how it is done, the vasectomy, many men were like, okay, this is interesting. So I can save my wife from all this pain and all this surgery and all that just in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And it's interesting. Sometimes I think we need to have these conversations in the different angles, looking at different things for these men to actually know what it takes and all that. If anyone has a question, feel free to put up your hand and I can easily ask, I can easily give you a chance. Henry is asking, is vasectomy a right message to the young people? Yes and yes and yes. Why? First of all, it is important for us to note that the biggest population in Uganda are people below the age of 35. And we have very many young people giving birth to children. But also, it is important for a person to know ahead of time that, you know what, I can do this when I want to decide what family to have. And they know that early enough. We had a discussion this morning where someone was saying that actually, Antonio was telling us that if you ask someone who has 6 children, how many children did you want to have? And say, oh, actually, I would have wanted to have 4 or 3, but I ended up having 6. So it's important to know even before you even start having children that, okay, I want to have the number of children, and actually when the time comes and I am done with these children, I can do that, I can do this. I see Ojangole Emmanuel has a question, has raised up their hand. Ojangole, you can ask your question, please. Unmute and ask your question.
Thank you. Actually, mine is not a question. I just wanted to add on something from experience from Teso Safe Motherhood in Teso. We also are participating in the Rich and Fast program when we enrolled in vasectomy in Teso as men family planning. What we realized is that most of the men who were taking in the vasectomy were actually mostly the urban men. So we devised a means of the interpersonal communication, whereby we had the anonymous client, what we call anonymous clients, their clients were the providers who could pose like they have had a vasectomy because they understand the information and they knew some of these men. So they could contact in their men groups, either drinking places, then they could talk about vasectomy like they have had it, yet is a provider who wants to fish out some of these men. And it is one of the strategies that actually helped us work. In rural areas, was said, we basically relied on leaders and the certified users, but also we used the local, what we call the local champions. There are these people in villages who, like most people see, like if they talk, they have sense. So we also relied on such men in those areas, whereby we gave them the information and they understood about vasectomy. Some of them could take and became certified user. So they could go to these local trading centers where men play Ludo, and they could basically talk about vasectomy, and would realize in walk-ins and men could call in to find more about the method. So locally, that's what we were using, and mostly we also relied on journalists. You know, most people in the villages here have even their children named after our local journalists. So we brought them also on board, like in their programs, they would do chip in information about vasectomy. And we saw there was a good uptake because they say, so-and-so DJ so-and-so talked so much about this and told us that I would give in a call about this. That is what really we are trying to do here.
Very much.
Jonathan wants to say something, Abraham. So thank you,
Yeah,
Emmanuel.
Yeah, I was curious. I was very curious about, well, first of all, what a great turnout and interesting conversation and very well run. And man, I tell you, we were just thinking about, like where there's possibilities for programs to expand. And I think Uganda is a great place. There's a lot of, I was listening to the previous talk and the categories of elements that make for a program, like slightly more affluent, people who are doing better and are able to see a better future. And I think Uganda's got a lot going for it. And I think it's an exciting time. I'm wondering if, a lot of the problem is I've seen over the years, because I visited a lot of places, that when the funding for a program ends, the program ends, it doesn't sustain itself. And I'm just wondering, what do you think it's going to take? And I'm curious, anybody can answer the question, like what's going to take for And how long? Because that was the other question. How long is it going to take before a vasectomy becomes just part of what a man does, a husband, when his family is complete? Like, how long, how much more time do we have? And are you seeing changes? Are young men different from the older men? Or I'm just curious, are we seeing more hopeful signs that vasectomy is going to continue to expand?
Thank you, Jonathan. I don't know. Antonio, do you want to respond, or is someone?
I want to say share some thoughts, and then Moses can also join me. Jonathan, yes, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of potential, as you're saying, and me here in East Africa, I can say that, and we will invite, after this question, we will invite some of the influencers that we invited to join the conversation. And I can even share that with them, the opinion is changing. They are more open. They have like, okay, maybe I can get more information and then take the decision. While sometimes they don't even want to hear like, no, my masculinity, I don't want to have that. I want to keep having children. Maybe if I'm like 60 years old and I want to have a baby, I want to keep that. But there's also some other young guys that they are considering. They are like, okay, maybe just 2, 3 children, and then that's it. So I think that it's changing, and how long it will take. I'm pretty sure that I'm comparing as you are, and some of the people that know me. I'm coming from West Africa, and specifically Liberia. In Liberia, we didn't have the infrastructure as we have it here in Uganda. So Moses mentioned something about the policy and all what we are doing with the social marketing and changing the behavior. So here we have the resources, we have doctors, we have hospitals, the reproductive health Uganda they already have the service available. We also have Mary Stops and other organizations that they offer information and they offer the services. So we have the infrastructure. So it's just a matter, I believe that it will be in a shorter time than if we compare with other countries. We have this Mexico's miracle that you always share with us, and I'm sure that it will be quite easy for us to get that level of awareness and service provision for vasectomy. Moses, please.
Thank you very much, Antonio. I just want to say that when you look at the statistics from what Dr. Francis presented from the Backstrom project that ended a few years ago, there is really hope that in the next 2 to 3 years from now, there's going to be a lot of momentum built around the evidence that we have. Because already, if a project can close with over 300 men in 1 year having a vasectomy, that alone demonstrates that from the client perspective, there's already demand and acceptance for the method as a method of choice for the men. But most importantly, I also believe that with the current population growth rates, we usually talk about the average woman in Uganda is estimated to have 5.4 children. What about the average man? That question has not been asked. So I strongly believe that the momentum is going to change with the communication. So that's my take. And Ibrahim, you've never answered that question of what's the maximum number of children a man should have in Uganda. So that statistic needs to change. Thank you.
I was also wondering, because we talk about like the men wanting to have more children, but I wonder if in part, and I even admit to a certain extent experienced it myself, but I wasn't happily married when I was in my early 40s and I was divorced. I didn't want more children, but I was reluctant to have a vasectomy because I thought it would make it harder for me. It was maybe in my late 30s. I thought it would be harder to find a woman like that. It wasn't so much I wanted more children because I already had 2 children, but I wanted another wife. And I thought, oh, I should not get a vasectomy. And I don't say that makes sense, or that's correct, but I'm just curious and hear from the men there, like, is it that they really want more children, or is it that they're worried that if they get a vasectomy, they won't be as appealing to women? And I don't know if that's been studied or not, but I think if anybody has any thoughts on that on a personal level, or has anybody studied it, I think it would be interesting to know which one is it.
Before actually I invite someone to answer, I just want to share something small. When on Tuesday, when another committee and one of the men told us, right now I have 3 children. Actually, they have 4 children. Him and the wife have 4 children, but because of the way the economy is, they don't think they should add a child. However, he's hopeful that he will become richer. So when he becomes richer, he would want to add more children. So it's the same scenario, I think, with what you're saying, Jonathan, that maybe you're not adding children because you think things are going to change. When you get another wife, she may need children and things like that. But Dr. Moses, you are saying something, please.
I think going by what Jonathan has said, one of the things we need to note that this question is a two-edged sword because of lack of adequate communication and also stigma around vasectomy. The men tend to look at the procedure as not having a backup plan. So we believe that with the right communication, we should be able to target and get the men who are ready to make decisions based on the right information. Right now, it's a gray area for most men who would want to take the procedure. They are still doing it clandestinely. So with that, you'll find they are sure, not sure. So let's get the momentum out there. Let the guidelines be out there. And I think that will change because the evidence is already building and research can be galvanized on the evidence that we already have.
Thank you, Moses. Yeah, Ibrahim. Yes, so Francis and Nathan, please apologize. Let's hold a little bit the questions. We have some Twitter influencers in the same room with you guys, so they can also give some of their point of view. So we can start with Margaret, that you mentioned something about that, yes, you will be happy that at some point if your husband get the vasectomy, it will be also good. So Ibrahim, you're in the same room. Can you check if Margaret or some of the other can join the conversation? And then we can go back. If Jonathan allowed us, if we have more time, we can extend the question session. Okay, let's go with TJ. TJ, are you ready?
Hello.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay. As I was saying earlier, my thoughts on vasectomy are quite good actually, because I realized most people don't get to enjoy their youth because of having so many kids. You find that at the age of 25, 27, someone has about maybe 4 kids already. And all the money they are trying to get, instead of using it to maybe develop their lives, become a better person, they are spending it all on kids and school fees. So for me personally, I'm planning to have, I don't have any kids yet, but I'm planning to have about 3 kids maximum. And after that, I will surely get a vasectomy. And those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much, TJ. Margaret, do you want to share your thoughts?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My view about vasectomy is really one. I think vasectomy needs we need more effort to sensitize people about vasectomy. And because a lot of myths are out there and the truth is being concealed. So definitely the sensitization needs to go a little bit higher than it is. And I do not think vasectomy is a bad thing. Coming from a family of a lot of human beings, I would actually recommend one. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Jonathan, your hand is up. Are you?
No, sorry, I'll just put it down. There we go. I'm curious. I just want to listen to everybody.
Okay. So I've just seen some questions here from I've seen a question from someone from Kenya. Mboga has been following. Shout out to you, Mboga from Kenya. And he's asking if you have publicized vasectomy in Uganda via radio and TV programs, and what % have been reached. So I request Judith or Benson to go in the chat, or Dr. Francis to just share some of your wise counsel. I've seen Dr. Francis has been sharing information there, which is very good. So if you've put questions in the chat, just know that the experts there are going to also answer, so that we can have all these platforms go on. However, we have another influencer here in the room that wants to share their experience. So you can go ahead.
Yes, thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Me as a person, I'm not planning of having something of such a kind, but then I would like to have a number of kids I would want to manage well. But then sometimes, like most of us when we are growing up, we receive bad information about such a things, maybe from our elders, our parents, or maybe our elder brothers or sisters. They keep telling us something like maybe different things, like maybe it has these problems, it can cause this, maybe like it reduces on your fertility rate, such a things. Maybe there is need to handle that.
Thank you. So there is a lot of communication coming in there, and it's interesting when I see that someone is aware that they want to have this number of children, although they're not willing to have vasectomies. And for me, I think it goes back to the option of people wanting to keep options open. Like they are there, but they want to be there. I want to ask one of a friend of mine and also a colleague, a young doctor, Dr. Chizabler, and I want to ask you a simple question. Do you think as a young doctor, you would recommend someone to do a vasectomy? And why I'm asking this is because I know very many people listen to that, people that actually have doctors or doctor friends who come and tell you, okay, doctor, I think I have to do this, I have to do that. But because I talked to, just a little background, I talked to Blair a few weeks ago when I was interesting him into some World Vasectomy Day work. But I have been seeing Blair in a certain circle. Me and him are part of the coalition to stop maternal mortality in Uganda due to unsafe abortions. And he's a very vocal person that has been out there talk about young people or about women having a chance to decide when to have a child and not. And I want to get his opinion about vasectomies in just 1 or 2 minutes. And then I'll ask Judith to tell us about the work they're doing with refugee communities, how they're able to do vasectomy in the refugee communities, and then we shall come back with the questions. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. Greetings to everyone from the different parts of the country they're in. It's afternoon in Uganda, and I would say good afternoon to everyone who is listening in from Uganda. It's a very interesting time, and I would like to share a few remarks. And earlier on when I was coming to be a part of this event, I first passed by the second national dialogue on sexual reproductive health and rights. And today the main theme is to decolonize and then to see how men can get on board when it comes to family planning. And then they coined something interesting during the workshop. They said that for long we have preached for men to get involved in a way that they can support women to take up family planning. But we have seen that men being supportive is not enough. You supporting your wife to use injectables, to use implants, to use IUDs is not enough compared to if you are directly using the method of family planning. For men, we have a few or limited methods of family planning compared to the women. For men, we have it's either a condom or you're going to use a vasectomy. I'll take it the only two methods that we have. So if we can embrace and we take up the methods of family planning rather than supporting people in the communities or our wives or our sisters or our cousins to have the methods in use. So back to your question, you asked me that if as a young doctor, would I recommend someone to have a vasectomy? Yes, I would absolutely recommend someone. There are very many reasons why someone would go ahead and do a vasectomy as a young person or a middle-aged person or an elderly person. For a young person, it may be simple. You may not desire to have children. It's okay. It's your choice. You know, not everyone is meant to father children. It's not the natural way of leading life. Like, you know, you're designed to grow up, take up school, make some little money, you know, find a woman and then settle down and then you have kids. It's not how it's supposed to be for everyone. So someone may wake up and say, me, I don't want to father kids. It's okay. If you choose to do a vasectomy, well and good. If you want to have casual sex for the rest of your life without any fear of, you know, I may impregnate this girl yet I'm not ready or I'm not interested in fathering kids, not now, not tomorrow, or not any other day, you can take a vasectomy. As a young person, yes, I would highly recommend that. Then two, there is child spacing vis-a-vis what we definitely term as family planning. If you have already two children and you want to stop there, as a young person, I've seen in Uganda, anywhere, statistics reveal that a man is, you know, is able to impregnate someone by the age of, you know, average it is around 13, 14, 15. So at that time, we have seen in Uganda very many boys, especially the COVID-19, fathered another pandemic of gender-based violence, or, you know, children being redundant at home, engaging into, you know, sexual-related activities, and we saw a steep rise in the number of teenage pregnancies. So what I'm trying to say is, by the age of 20, you find very many youths in an African setting having like 3 or 4 children, and not that they want, but because they don't know, they don't have the right information, or it wasn't actually their intention to have children in the first place. But if you have the 4 children and you want to stop, yes, I would highly recommend you to have. Then we have other protective factors that come with the vasectomy. We have genetic diseases. For example, Huntington's disease. It's autosomal dominant. If it runs in the family, then definitely there is a very high chance, 92 to 95 or more chances that you're going to have a child who's having Huntington. It's a terrible disease. And if you have information about that, you're a scholar, you're in the medical profession, you'd obviously go for vasectomy. I wouldn't stop you. I would give you the encouragement to go for it. So vasectomy, yes, it's a good way. Research is done around prostate cancer, you know, reduces the risk. And yes, it would be a very interesting, you know, if it becomes more clear, the information, if it's clearer that it's actually protective, it would be a very good thing. So we need to embrace vasectomy as young people, older people, and the elderly people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abdea. Time is not, as we have actually 11 minutes to go. Jonathan has his hand up. Actually, have your hand up. And also on Judith to tell us something interesting about how they do the work in the refugee community. So I'll start with Jonathan, then Antonio, and then we have Judith, and then I'll do the final remarks. You can still keep putting the questions in the chat, and also we can continue having this conversation over and over again. We are using hashtag act of love social media, so you can use this to ask questions. The next person will answer. It's a global conversation, so there are people ready to answer your questions. Let's start with Jonathan, and then we'll have Antonio.
Well, first of all, it's so encouraging listening to so many really thoughtful, intelligent interventions. You know, it makes me think there is a lot of really smart, you know, possibilities for moving forward. I had a question. I was wondering if the group thought it would be useful, or does it already exist? If there was like a men's health clinic, like if there was a place to go that really was for men and address men's health issues, sexual and reproductive, but also just our overall health needs. Would that be something that would be appealing in Uganda? Is that something needed? Does it already exist? I'm just curious what people think about that idea.
Yeah, people, in fact, Jonathan, personally, I think it would be a very interesting thing to actually have a male clinic because even all the family planning clinics we have around Uganda focus mainly on female planning. So a male clinic, I think, would be good for someone to walk in there, get information, and move out. Yeah, so I don't know what the rest think. You can either put up your hand and submit or share in the link. Actually, I would advise that you put your comments in the comment section, the chat section, what you think about Jonathan's question of having a male clinic where people come and get information and services from male. Antonio, you had your hand up, please. Can you submit?
Oh, it was just clapping the comment from the doctor. But answering Jonathan, yes, I believe that we should have a space available to provide the information, and so we can normalize family planning with males. It's not just about, like, I understand that sometimes we consider vasectomy because, okay, the economical reasons, right? Like, okay, because I can maintain only 2, 3, 4, and I consider that I will be able to maintain that. But I'm sure that if we normalize the conversation about vasectomy, and if we have a space where we can discuss that, where any Ugandan can just, like, because we have some people that they are curious to understand, like, how the procedure goes, if it is painful, if it is just if they will stay at the clinic, or if it is just like a 30 minutes procedure and then they can just walk out as if nothing happened. So I'm sure that it will be good to have a space. It's something that we were discussing before with World Vasectomy, with Reach a Hand, or seeing, like, today there's some places where we can receive information, at least that we can connect with them. But it will be good to have a clinic, a pop-up clinic that can give this information and services. So let's work on it.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, thank you, Antonio. I'm sure many people put their comments in there. Emma, your hand was raised. I request you put that in the comment section. Now, Judith, I want to ask you a simple question. I understand that Acodef is has projects where having vasectomies done in refugee settlements. And for me, I find this interesting because of the nature of the setup of the refugee communities. So I want us to tell us how that experience is. And just in a brief, like 3 minutes maximum, because we have 6 minutes to go, I'll give 3 minutes just to ask about the experience and how it is and what key learnings are there, and for other people here to know.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Yeah, I'll be sharing my experience working with refugees. Yeah, we have a project, a 3-year project funded by Bergstrom Foundation, but also we work along with Reach a Hand Uganda to implement family planning services to both refugees and the host community. First of all, I'd like to mention that refugees are unique in nature. And what makes them unique is that they've lost their loved ones and they would really want to replace them as fast as they can. But also in our messaging or in our packaging, we try to really emphasize on the health spacing of the children. And even for those who are really reached a maximum what they would desire, really advise them to limit. The initial stages, it was very difficult to see a refugee individual take up any family planning method. But along the way, we devised means to engage them.
Good evening,
and they be part of the program. And in this way, we had to recruit VHTs who are also refugees. And in such a way, you'd find that it's very easy for them to pass on the information to their fellow refugees. So we've seen a number of refugees coming up. taking on the methods in general, but to be precise, are also among our own health workers, among our own VHTs who are refugees, have taken on vasectomy with ease. And that also makes it more easier for them to communicate to the other teams about vasectomy. Also allow me to share with you that the large number of refugees depend on food rations. And this is also basically dependent on donors. So you'd find that we try to talk to them about the intention and also the danger of depending on food rations by donors. So in that way, they basically see the importance and they really adopt very fast. We've seen so many now coming up, taking on the methods, but by and large, we've had role model men who are also refugees. You find somebody is influential and they can easily talk about the method with ease. So at least last month, we had 2 of them come up and take methods. And the other is that at times when they come in as a couple, you find that maybe a mother is not eligible, like for example, for a BTL, but through deeper and detailed counseling, you find that this gentleman accepts and says, let me go in for vasectomy instead of coming back home and as having a method. Yes, true, many have replaced, but I think also they are also understanding that they have reached some maximum numbers because of the land in the refugee settlement. It is very sketchy. The food itself, basically, when you look at the resources, they are so limited. So that's why we have a very big campaign of limiting for those who have reached their desired reproductive health goals.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
How are you? Thank you very much, Judith. When I was in Adjumani in West Nile of Uganda, those of you who are not familiar with Uganda, Adjumani. One of the interesting things that I actually realized is that actually a big number of refugees don't want to take up family planning methods because the more children they have, the more food rationale they'll have. It was a very interesting perspective. But when discussing with such, we always ask them, okay, until when do you think you're going to have the support from the government and from different entities? So we're having all these discussions, and I know very many questions are coming in. I hope, Jonathan, you've received feedback from people. I'm seeing people have commented, and I've not seen someone who says that it's not a good idea. Everyone believes that a male clinic could be a very good idea. But I have to go back a little bit to Dr. Moses, and I want to ask him something that is very interesting to me. I want to know, because when you talk about, Jonathan asked a question about funding for programs, well, like in many cases when the project ends or the funding ends, even the project ends, and we had a question of how long do we think it will take for us to actually know that men think of vasectomy or family planning on a daily basis as part of their life and health. And I'd ask you, Dr. Moses, I hope you're there. Dr. Moses, are you there? I'm not seeing your camera on.
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, I'd ask you as first of all, as a key programmer, but also as one of the people that have invested in family planning or in contraceptions for men. Do you think it's a worth investment? And I'm bringing it in a perspective, given the fact that the men's attitude towards their health is not the best that we have. I even know very many men today that don't want to go for an HIV test. And what they'll say is that if my wife has tested, I am sure I am negative or positive, whatever wife said. So do you think it's a worth investment? And as you're answering that, I want you to throw in light on how you think different funders or different investors can go about that. The investment, the huge investment they're putting in, is the results that come out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. And I'll say that there is no doubt in my mind that investing in vasectomy programs will shine light on many, many gray areas. So if you are a funder out there and you want to invest in vasectomy programs in Uganda, there are many places that we can shine a light. For instance, you can begin from the social angle, that if you invest in vasectomy, you're able to ensure that at the family level, the men and women come to an equal footing where family planning can be taught based on the understanding that it's either party that can take part in it. Secondly, in Africa and in Uganda in particular, there's the cultural component. Cultural leaders are very big influencers when it comes to vasectomy and any other family planning method. So when you invest in family planning, you are shining light and bringing people on board like cultural leaders, religious leaders, to talk openly about a method that's likely to improve the livelihoods of families and also to improve the global indices like the Sustainable Development Goals. For instance, investing in vasectomy helps to avert maternal mortality. That's something that we should look at as a proxy indicator, in that if a man helps the woman to limit the number of children, that's a worthwhile investment, and it helps to shape the trajectory for the human development indices, of which that's a very important key thing. The other investment is that when you invest in vasectomy, you empower the men. You had the conversions from the gentleman from Kumi was saying now he's looking forward to shifting from a mud house to a house that is permanent. And that's because he's able to have that peace of mind. It's like an insurance for the men. It's like when you pay for vehicle insurance, you can drive and you know that tomorrow, if this car gets an accident, I'm able to get compensated. So when you have a vasectomy, it's an insurance for having peace of mind at home and also to think about other bigger things. But most importantly, when we invest in vasectomy, and I want to repeat this, that when we invest in vasectomy, we move away from celebrating program numbers, number of men who have undertaken the vasectomy procedure, and we move to what we call knowledge translation. We're able to lift the evidence from different parts of the country and place it to an arena where we can have decision makers like policy makers, politicians, and other influential people who can allocate resources, plan adequately for vasectomy. So in a nutshell, I want to say that investing in vasectomy means that you're investing in so many global issues and so many national issues, and it helps to shine light in many gray areas within our society. So as a person, I believe that it's an extended way of thinking at sexual and reproductive health in a much more broader way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moses. Jonathan is actually clapped for you and Antonio because that was a very, very brilliant submission. Yes, unfortunately, despite how much we want to talk, we don't have all day, we don't have all the time. I want to ask that we keep on sending that information in the chat, because right now I want to hand over to the next co-host, who is going to be